I can't stand the rain. It's raining day. Yo, what's good, what's good, what's good? You are now watching Juk Boyz Sports Show. I'm your host, Kyng Ralph, here with my co-host for the day, my boy Tar. Was good. How you feeling, Brody?
Man, I'm doing well, man. Watching these NBA playoffs, look, man, the Lakers are busting the Timberwolves right now. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's funny. It's only been like one or two games that have been like close. All the
Yeah,
other ones like blowouts,
have not
actually,
been competitive at all, bro. Like,
whatsoever. Maybe that's part of the reason why why viewership is down. It's competitive. But
man,
before we get started, got to send a shout out to the sponsors. If you're looking to do a podcast like what you're watching, music, video, photo shoot, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fit Boxer. And if you're looking for a clean, no crash, jitterless energy drink, get on your iPhones, your Androids, your Samsungs, iPads, all that tablets. Go on DUBBYW.com. Use promo code JUKE for 20% off. We're going to get you right. And while you're here, if you're watching, when you're watching, comment, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We need the engagements. We need to get the numbers up. We're approaching 100 subscribers on YouTube, trying to get to 100 followers on the Juke Network Facebook page. Follow, like that page as well. Once we do get to 100, we'll be able to go live straight from there, move everything from the He Say, She Say channel to the Juke Network channel. You can follow me at KYNGRALPH on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, at an underscore for X or Twitter. And let's get into it, man. Got the draft coming up this week. So, who's the most overrated player in the draft?
I mean, I'm a share too, right? And just by me calling them overrated doesn't mean that I don't think that they're going to be successful in the league. It's just the optics of, you know, just to answer the question. I think the first guy that comes to mind is Will Campbell. And the reason why I say Will Campbell is because he's short armed as a
Yeah,
tackle, and that's never a good thing as a tackle. Speed rush kicks his behind a lot. Um, and I think that he's a better run defender than he's a pass defender.
yeah,
And he shapes up as a guard, right? He reminds me a lot, not reminds me a lot, but I remember when the Raiders had drafted Robert Gallery.
yeah,
And the thing with Robert Gallery was he was supposed to be this God gifted left tackle, and he was a bust at left tackle, and they moved him to guard, right? And
yeah,
that's normally the story when it comes to left tackles, right? Like if you have short arms or if you have some type of ability that's just not there, they're going to move you to guard. And if you weren't really that great in pass in college, you're probably not going to be that in the NFL. And I just see him more as a guard than a tackle. And if you're going to draft a franchise left tackle, and you have to move him to guard, how successful was he, right? At what you drafted. So I could see Will Campbell. And the other one, I actually do like him, but it's one of those situations where I feel like when I'm watching it on TV, they're pushing this guy way too hard. Tyler Shock, the quarterback from
yeah,
Louisville. Like, I like him, but here's the thing: like, just because you need a quarterback, you shouldn't draft a quarterback and reach out of necessity just because you need it. Because look at what the Steelers did with Kenny Pickett, right? Look at I'm gonna go like from years past, like you know, Mitchell Trubisky. Like um, you look at Christian Ponder with the Vikings. Like you look at all these different stories of quarterbacks where it's like they were okay in college. They weren't great in college. They didn't show you anything that was magical in college. Tyler
yeah,
Shuck's biggest problem was injuries, right? Like shoulder injuries, knee injuries. Like Michael Penix had those same questions last year, but at least Michael Penix showed great tape at Washington to where you're like, okay, I get this. Where Tyler Shock, he had some great workouts and stuff like this, but outside of those workouts, it was like his career was very injury prone. So it's like when you're starting to project him into the first round, it's like you're just forcing it to teams that need quarterbacks. And at that point, that's kind of like, why no? Like that's kind of like irresponsible. Like if you get him at a position in the second or third round, I'm okay with you picking him. But if you're
yeah,
picking him in the first and second round just because you need a quarterback, I don't know how I feel about that. And he's 26. He's going to be 26. I'm not saying that that's old or whatever, but it's if you're gonna let him try to sit the bench and learn for a couple of years,
yeah.
all of a sudden you're looking at a 28, 29-year-old quarterback.
Right.
You know, it's like kind of like when you drafted Brandon Whedon, right? When Brandon Whedon went to the first round to the Browns, and it was old as shit, and he didn't his career didn't come out.
This ain't the movies.
Yeah, so I mean, I like Taylor Shock, don't get me wrong, but I do think media trying to push him on us all the time like that.
Yeah.
Without knowing that there's some red flags and what those red flags are, right? So just because you need a quarterback, you ain't got to draft a quarterback. So
yeah, I agree, man. That was gonna be one of my points, was that I just feel like the quarterback group as a whole is overrated. I feel like it's the quarterback position is overrated. It's like when you sit here, you watch all these different people give their perspectives and where people should go. I'm watching one earlier, and it was like out of 5 dudes, 4 of them was like, they got to get a quarterback. You got to get a quarterback. But it's like, if, like, for instance, when we get into it, if I got this world changer on defense, but it's a decent quarterback, I get it. A great quarterback changes everything, but overreaching for a decent quarterback is where I draw the line. Like, I feel like a person like a Jalen Milroe, I just feel like, for me, grading, I don't have a problem with you drafting second round. But the fact that you need a quarterback and they talking about him at 21 is where I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. He ain't that nice. Like,
same thing with Jackson Dart.
Yeah, like, I don't have a problem with Shador and Cam going first round, because I do think if we were doing other drafts, we would be ranking them differently. But for this draft, given where people need it, I don't have a problem with them getting drafted at 1 all the way to 15. But Jackson Dart moving to the point where people are saying he might get drafted before Shador, and I'm like, yeah, hell no, y'all tripping, bro.
You know what's funny about Jackson? And I like Jackson Dart. Don't get me wrong. But his comparisons is Gardner Minshew. So we're drafting Gardner Minshew in the first round.
Hell yeah.
You know, Gardner Minshew, like the actual Gardner Minshew, was drafted what, 5th, 6th round?
Yeah.
So it's like, if that's your player like when you look at a lot of these player comparisons, it's like, so you're drafting this, you're feeling that this is a ceiling. You're drafting that ceiling in the first round. That's insane to me.
Right. Yeah. And then who's the most underrated?
I think all the running backs. Like, since she went quarterback, because I feel like there's been this stigma that we got to draft Ashton Jeanty. Jaguars want Ashton Jeanty. This team wants Ashton Jeanty. This team wants, this person. And then Omario Hampton, like, the Cowboys got to draft Omario Hampton. This, like, no, you don't. Like, this is one of those drafts where you don't have to, like, overly draft. Like, I know you like Ashton Jeanty as a talent, right? But I'm just going to share one name with you. And it's not even like, it's chill, right? Like an Ollie Gordon, right? Like, he has some off the field issues, yes, right? But if you look at what he did the previous year, he was the previous year's Ashton Jeanty. He had what? He won the Doak Walker, 1,700 yards, 21 touchdowns, 2,000 all-purpose yards. He did his thing. Problem was he had a bad quarterback, bad offensive line play. We know you're the only offensive weapon. We're going to stack 8 to 10 in the box to stop you. Yeah. So his college production went down, right? But if you're drafting him in the 5th round, last year's draft, he would have been the number 1 running back drafted, because that was a weak running back class, but he would have been up there because of what he did in college, right? So get back and relax. So you got a guy like him in the 5th round, right? Like, you got Devin Neal, a guy like that. You got a guy like Dylan Sampson from Tennessee, who he reminds me a lot of Brian Westbrook, 1,500 yard guy, can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's dangerous. You got both Ohio State guys, Henderson and Junkins. You got Cam Scatterbo, RJ Harvey. Like, there's so many different running backs in the draft to where you
I like the boy Michigan too, and I'm not even a big Michigan guy.
Yeah, so you don't have to like be pressed to draft Ashton Jeanty. You don't have to be pressed to draft Omario Hampton. If you just sit back, you're going to get a good running back, because this is one of the most phenomenal running back classes in recent memory. So to me,
yeah, I agree, man. That was going to be where I was going to go with it, was the running back group as a whole. With this particular one, you can get at least, I feel confident saying you can get 8 starters out of this.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's like, when you really think about it, where the way that the league looks at the running back position, you're getting people that are able to catch the ball off the backfield, and run through the tackles, and be bell cows at the end of the day. And so I think my most underrated is my boy Mike Green out of Marshall. I think that what he was able to do, leading the nation in sacks, I feel like he should be getting more praise and more hype. But I get it, off the field issues. Although it never really went anywhere, he transfers to a smaller school, balls out. But I just feel like what he's been able to do on tape might not have all the crazy measurables, but production on the field, I feel like if anything, he would be able to at least put pressure on the quarterback, and at a high level too. So for me, that's why I got him as my most underrated player in this draft. But and we both Raider fans. You hinted at Ashton Genty, which is where a lot of people feel like he's going to end up going. Who's the player you want us to draft the most? If you had your cap on,
I kind of already. It's like I don't want to like get myself overly like excited because I do think it's going to be Ashton Genty, but with all this talk about Ashton Genty, let's say they don't get Ashton Genty, I would love like the top defensive player to fall to them, like a Mason Graham, right? But if that doesn't, let's just say it's Ashton Genty, right? I feel like there's three positions of need that the Raiders have to address. You got to address wide receiver, you got to draft linebacker, and you got to draft cornerback. And then if you can sprinkle in some guards, right tackles, whatever, that's perfectly fine. But you got to go wide receiver. And for me, like I'm hoping Emeka Egbuka falls to the Raiders because he essentially fits them because of who the Raiders offensive coordinator is. So he fits them perfectly. He knows their system. He knows their scheme. So I would love that, Emeka Egbuka, for like wide receiver. And if he doesn't fall, Luther Burden the third, I'd be perfectly okay with that as well. Because, I mean, outside of our number one wide receiver, outside of Jacoby Myers, outside of Brock, and outside of the vertical wide receiver the Raiders got, they don't have their wide receiver room is bare. They don't have a wide receiver room at all. So they need to go there. And then I would say in the secondary, after releasing Jack Jones, which, was a controversial move, I could see, Morrison from Notre Dame, who, he sat out a little bit last year because of, injuries, but, he would be a solid piece. You have, Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky, because when I'm looking at cornerbacks, I'm looking at Pete Carroll. He likes measurable. So he likes a 6'1". He likes bigger, longer arm guys. So I'm looking at like a Trey Amos. I'm looking at Thomas from Florida State. I'm looking at Hairston. I'm looking at Darian Porter. Darian Porter is 6'4", 200. So if you look at Darian Porter, he reminds you a lot of Tyreek Woolen, right? Yeah. So, I mean, I think that you're going to go corner. And then you got to look at linebacker too, because, I think the linebacker cupboard is kind of bare too with the Raiders. So I'm looking at Carson Switzinger from UCLA. I like Demetrius Knight. I like Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma. So these are Smell Munden from Georgia as well. So there's a few different guys. And then my other dark horse for the Raiders too in the later rounds is Teddy Buchanan from Cal. So, but yeah, I just think they got to address those three positions for sure.
For sure. And well, let's get into it, man. So we got the Juk Boyz Mock Draft. We are going to alternate. I had odds, Tar had evens, and just going through what a lot of teams and a lot of media pundits got. I got Cam Ward, Tennessee Titans, number one on the clock, or first team on the clock. I got Cam Ward going to the Tennessee Titans. Me personally, if I was to do a draft and if it was me picking, I do have Shedeur as the best quarterback in the draft currently sitting. I do see the ceiling of Cam Ward and what he would be able to offer had he been able to reach his peak with the right tutelage. I think that the arm talent, being able to create out the pocket, kind of has a little bit of that like the craziness of like Caleb Williams had in college. Though he has those same type of measurables, It's just whether or not can he put it together. Where for me, that's where I feel like Shedeur is the better quarterback. But given what the Titans need, I think he is a better fit from day one. I feel like he gives them a higher ceiling. And so with this pick, I have no problem with Tennessee Titans selecting Cam Ward.
Okay. So you got to forgive me for this one because we kind of talked about this. I'm going to go off script. So Cleveland, their quarterback room makes absolutely zero sense to me. I don't know what they're doing with their quarterback situation. If you go into week one starting Joe Flacco or, Kenny Pickett, it's stupid. I don't get it. Like, I understand you paid Deshaun Watson a lot of money, but you still got to kind of address the quarterback room. You should go, like you said, Shedeur, but I don't understand the stigma with Shedeur. So you got to go with a Swiss Army knife. You got to go with Travis Hunter. You have to go with Travis Hunter because that makes the most sense. He plays two positions, right? But number one, you want a guy that gets open quick and that you can get the ball to right away. They're going to let him play wide receiver. You have to think, they got Jerry Jeudy on the other side, and Jerry Jeudy had a breakout season. They got David Njoku. They have weapons there, but he's a guy that could get open really, really quick, gets open in the tunnel, and because you need that with this quarterback situation, because this quarterback situation doesn't make sense to me. Like Joe Flacco, if this was 2010, you're lit, but it's 2025 and you're not lit, right? And then Kenny Pickett has never been good in life, so I don't understand. I don't get it. So I want weapons. So get them. They're not going to draft quarterback for whatever reason. This is, again, probably in the second round. They'll probably go Tyler Shuck or something like that. So get whatever quarterback you're going to draft in the later rounds because you don't like Shedeur. Get him a weapon. So it's Travis Hunter.
Yeah. I definitely see that, man, because I think that with them having the first pick in the second round, gives them a piece that they can use to move up, or it just gives them a really good piece at the top or at the top of the next round. So to be able to go in and get a quarterback, which is like, we're not ranting and raving about the quarterbacks in this draft, but we do think that at that spot there are some good quarterbacks to be able to work with at that spot.
Yeah, agreed.
So at the number 3 spot, you got the New York Giants. I got them selecting. Where my man at? Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State, has a lot of that Micah Parsons comp. Watching his tape, he could play linebacker. He can play edge rusher. Versatile, being able to get after the quarterback. Record gives them a heck of a defense when you think about Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Thibodeau all on the same line, where you don't even really got to be blitz. You just send those 4 after them, and they should be able to wreak havoc. So I got the Giants taking Abdul Carter at 3.
So number 4 with the Patriots, I think that you could go several different spots here. Like I've been hearing a lot of Ashton Genty to them, and I've been hearing a lot of Armand Minbu here. I've been hearing, so there's been a lot of different names, but the number one thing that you got to do is you got to protect your quarterback because you got Drake May. You made an investment in him. You're not 100% hard pressed on going wide receiver because you did add a wide receiver this offseason. So I mean, it's Stephon Diggs, so they did add Stephon Diggs. I think that you need an offensive lineman to protect your quarterback. And I know I called him kind of overrated, but just going by just the feel of everything, I think Will Campbell. Because if all else fails with Will Campbell, he would be a very good guard, right? But I think that they're going to draft him. They're going to play him at tackle and see what he got, and it's not a bad pick. It's you got to protect that young guy if you invested in him last year, a high pick, you got to protect him. So you got to get him a franchise left tackle. So Will Campbell.
And this is a pick here where me personally, I hope he slides past this. I would love for me to be wrong on this pick, but I got at 5, I got the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting out of Michigan D tackle Mason Graham. Oh, there we go. Wow. I think that being able to bolster that line man, but what he did against us as an Ohio State fan alone put him on my radar. I was like, man, the Raiders need him. But I do think that Jaguars end up going here. I could see Ashton Genty, although
I could too.
I like ETN, but I do think being able to reset the running back, reset your market time period or time clock to where you have to pay a running back top money. Ashton Genty should be worth it on all accounts. Everybody is expecting him to do big things. I could see him there, but I do think that given trying to bolster the rest of the roster, I think they would go Mason Graham in this pick.
Okay, so number 6, we got the Raiders. I think for the Raiders, they're going to go weapon here, right, on the offensive side of the ball because they really haven't addressed anything in the offseason on the offensive side of the ball besides, getting Geno Smith. And the one thing that Pete Carroll loves is the running back, as we've seen with Marshawn Lynch. And I think here is going to be Ashton Genty because he's a weapon. He's a do-everything kind of back. He's a good pass catcher out of the backfield. He's a good, guy that just an overall weapon that you get the ball to. And I think that the Raiders are enamored by him. I think that they're in love with him. I think he wants to be a Raider. And I think this is one of the worst kept secrets in the draft, that this is who the Raiders want to draft. And I think it's the worst kept secret that he wants to go there. So I think just based off the fact that, there's just a love triangle there, you got to go Ashton Genty for the Raiders.
All right. I like the pick in the end. I just think, like we spoke about, I think the running back position is so deep in this draft that you can get Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator. You can get one of the guys from Ohio State and just take someone that's more of a positional need. I hate that Will Johnson is battling injuries. I feel like this would have been a really good pick for us because of how much I enjoy him as a cornerback. But coming off of those injuries where you miss a lot of time, I just feel like it's hard to justify that pick. So I don't have a problem with Ashton Genty at 6. I'm actually cool with it. And so at 7, giving Justin Fields some help or protection, I got Armand Mimbo out of, was it Missouri?
Yeah,
out of Missouri. As I started going through this, I kept seeing Will Campbell's name up there, and I was like, you know what? When I really started looking into tackles, I just felt like him along with Banks, and if Simmons didn't get hurt, I was like, I feel like they're all within the same range. And so I do feel like the Jets are getting a really good tackle out of Mimbo, athletic left tackle to put out to protect Justin Fields' blind spot. Because, yeah, he can run, but give him some time is when he's best throwing the football down the field.
Okay, so number 8, I got the Carolina Panthers, and I have them drafting Jalen Carter, the linebacker from Georgia. His name is really Jalen Carter.
Yeah,
that's funny. But, I'm sorry. Anyway, but they lost. They lost Brian Burns last year. They traded him, and they've never actually found a good pass rushing guy to replace him. And I think that Jalen Carter, because it's funny because of the dude from the Eagles is Jalen Carter from Georgia. So I just thought that was ironic and funny. But Jalen Carter, he provides a good pass rushing guy that replaces Brian Burns. Like I said, he's a solid all around defender. And you get somebody that's hungry, somebody that can go after essentially go after the quarterback, and hunt the quarterback, and that's important, right? So number 8 for the Panthers, I got Jalen Carter.
And I like that pick for them. I do think that is kind of funny that Jalen Carter played for Georgia. And it's when you'll see that once again, as we go through this, Georgia has a bunch of names that could either be on this list or very well end up being drafted in the first round. And it's crazy. They do this every year. And so at 9, I got the New Orleans Saints selecting Shedeur Sanders. I think that I do think that this is the best fit for him of all the teams that he's been linked to. I think being able to play in a dome, getting an offensive-minded head coach, um, they still have talent over there with Alvin Kamara. You still got Chris Olave. Um, what's my man's name? That because he coming off an injury, but he was nice too.
The deep threat. Yeah, I know what you're talking
about. But still got weapons to be able to throw the ball to. Playing in a dome with an offensive-minded coach, I think this is the best fit for Shedeur. Wanted my Raiders to take him, but we got Geno extended his contract. So Shedeur shall move past us, and I got the New Orleans Saints taking him at 9.
Okay, so number 10 with the Bears. I wrestled with this, right? But it's much like I said again with the Patriots. Like, you have a young quarterback that you've invested in. You got to get him weapons. And you have Ben Johnson as your coach, who did a lot of things great with, the weapons he had with Detroit. Sam Laporta was a guy that he made, into a really solid tight end. Last year you drafted Rome Odunze. You got DJ Moore, right? And you got Cole Kmet too. So I think a 2 tight end set with those two, and with the wide receivers they already got. I love the idea of Tyler Warren in that offense with the coach that they have with Ben Johnson. I think that you want to get somebody that's quarterback friendly, right? Someone that's a security blanket. This is what you tried to do last year with Odunze. And you're just going to keep trying to build around Caleb Williams, and you're going to try to bring the best out of Caleb Williams. And I think that having a guy like Tyler Warren can do that, right? Like, you've seen what the Raiders did last year, when you draft Brock Bowers, right? I think that the tight end position now is so dynamic in the league that you want to have an elite one, and I mentioned they already have a really good one in Cole Kmet, but you get an even better one with Tyler Warren, and he just does so much for that offense. So I love it for the Bears, and and I love what Ben Johnson would do with him. And not only that, I'm sorry with that, but you seen him like line up in the Wildcat last year, with Penn State. Line up at quarterback. He lined up as an H-back. He did a lot of different things. And just the idea of that with Ben Johnson and the creativity that we've seen as with Ben Johnson, right? Tyler Warren's the perfect fit in that offense.
Yeah, I agree, man. You took those last words right out of my mouth. I was literally going to bring up everything that he was able to do, even to the point where Penn State fans were wishing on that 4th down that they'd have gave him the ball instead of doing what they did. Ohio State wins. And so I think that in the end, I think what he's able to do, you get a Brock Bowers essentially with doesn't have quite the cachet that Brock Bowers had coming out of college, but if you know football, then you know that he can do everything that Brock Bowers is able to do. And so I do think that's a good pick. I'm from Chicago. I'm not a Raider fan, but I'm not a Bears fan. I'm a Raider fan. But in the end, I think the hometown team is getting a good one here. And I brought him up before, my favorite corner. I think that he fits a need for the 49ers. I got Will Johnson at 11 going to the 49ers out of Michigan. I think that if Travis Hunter wasn't and just played corner, given Travis Hunter's ability right now, I do believe that the only thing holding Will Johnson back from being the number 1 corner is the injury. I think that he's just an overall package where Travis Hunter is a dual threat on both sides. Nobody's doing that. That's a unicorn. But if I'm strictly talking about cornerback talent, I think that Will Johnson fits this need at a high level. If he can come in and not deal with the injuries that's plagued him in his college career, he'll be phenomenal for the 49ers.
Okay. And so with number 12, I got the Cowboys. I wrestled with this because I do like Cedero McMillan here. I do love T-Mac. But as I'm starting to think about it more, I like, Matthew Golden here. And the reason why I chose Matthew Golden over Cedero McMillan is just the pure overall speed aspect of it. He takes the top off the defense in a way that's just needed. He's a perfect complementary to CeeDee Lamb, just the absolute perfect complementary, like a guy has the straight line speed, and that can, catch the ball, on a deep, and his yards per catch will be ridiculous. And he's a guy that is a Texas product, right? Like he started off at Houston and then transferred to Texas, literally. So I think he's just a guy that Dak would love throwing the ball to. He's a guy that's a compliment. He's definitely a really good compliment to CeeDee Lamb. And I think that he's been rising up the draft boards based off of what he did in his pro day, based off of what he did in the combine. So I could see Tedero McMillan here, but I'm just going to go Matthew Golden just because of the Texas connection, and just I think that he's just a better compliment to CeeDee Lamb.
I can get with that, man. I agree, bro. I think that when you think about building a team, you already have a number one, and it's like, oh, well, why not have two number? Why not have two number ones? But to have one that complements the other, where CD he has a deceptive speed and enough speed to be able to take the top off of defense, but he kills in that short, get the ball in his hands in open space type of thing, where you need someone to create that space. T-Mac could, but I feel like Golden would do it a little better in that sense. So I agree with that pick. I don't have a problem with it. I can also see them going running back here, but I do think
I do too. That's what we said.
Yeah. I do think the depth is one of those things where I don't think they go running back here. I feel like there's a drop off at wide receiver that's not quite there. So they'll hold on at the running back position here. At 13, I got Mikael Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia, going to the Dolphins at 13. I think that some of the injuries that they have when it comes to their edge rushers, people trying to come back, I think that this gives them enough depth. And he's a versatile player to where you can move him around a little bit from a defensive standpoint. So I do think that he fills a hole, given that their injury history, being able to play in that division where you're going to need to get after the quarterback. If young players reach their potential, you're in there with Josh Allen. Drake May looks like a legit QB, and you can't just try to outscore everybody. So I got Mikael, edge rusher out of Georgia, going to the Dolphins.
Okay, so number 14 with the Colts. I think you need to start building around Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, whoever your quarterback is going to be, right? You do have some good wide receivers on the outside. You got Michael Pittman, you got Alec Pierce, you drafted old boy from Texas last year. So you do have some things in place. You got Jonathan Taylor. So you have some pieces, but the one thing that's missing, like I said before with Tyler Warren, is that dynamic tight end and a security blanket for your quarterback, your young quarterback that you want to build around. So I got Colston Loveland from Michigan. Now, he's an interesting guy. I could see him going to the Chargers because his connection with Harbaugh, but I think that the Colts were a team last year that were pissed off that the Raiders drafted Brock Bowers because they wanted Brock Bowers. They were unable to get Brock Bowers, but I think that they'll circle back this year and get a tight end in Loveland, and I like it for Anthony Richardson. You want to build around him, so get him a big guy to throw to. So love it for them. I love that pick for them.
Yeah, me too, man. I think that they're so as good as we made it seem like Tyler Warren was. Colson to some people is better, if not right there with him.
Right.
And then at 15, I got my boy Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall, going to the Falcons, giving them some much needed pressure, getting after the quarterback. They were terrible last year. Really haven't had a solid pass rusher since like John Abraham, and that was like a decade ago. So like giving them some much needed help. They already have AJ Terrell. I love him when healthy. Making it easier on them, and they got a defensive minded head coach. I think he'll be able to get the most out of him. Mike Green going to the Atlanta Falcons.
So 16. I had no idea what the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know what the hell they need because I don't really like the Cardinals. Like the Cardinals are one of those teams to where it's just like I don't know about the Cardinals, but it's a pick to where, like, I looked at their secondary and I seen that they were 24th in pass defense last year, and they're a team that could definitely use a corner. So I got Jahdae Barron from Texas, and Jahdae Barron was a lockdown corner. He's a guy that could play on the island. He's a guy that could play in the nickel. And I think he was like this for Pro Football Focus. I think he was the second rated nickel corner in the league. So he's a very shut down corner. And I think in a conference where where you're playing against some solid wide receivers, like the Rams, for example, that just signed Devontae Adams, that that have Puka Nacua, you're still going against Cooper Kupp that can get open, like and a guy like Jackson Smith-Njigba, like it's important to lock down the perimeter. And I think that the Cardinals, they did a very good job of addressing their interior defense. They signed a few guys on the defensive line, so they didn't really do much in the secondary. And I think that they should address their secondary and I think Jahdae Barron would be like the perfect fit for that secondary.
Yeah, I like that pick. I seen a lot of media pundits had him going here, which I feel like he gives them a legit need, especially because they just signed Josh Sweat from the Eagles.
That's who it was. Okay, Josh Sweat. Okay,
they get Josh Sweat from the Eagles, so now we build on the back end, and seems like a good pick. And so, of a positional need, not sure what's going on with the Bengals are going to do with Trey Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Heard that they're trying to work something out with him to be able to keep him. So you need to put someone just in case he leaves, if not on the other side of him. Mr. Measurables, Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. I got him going to the Bengals at 17. Didn't necessarily have the production, but what is he, like 6'5", 260, ran fast, has ability. He did create a lot of pressures, just didn't necessarily get to the quarterback. And so I think in a way to be able to, if you got the measurables and you got the ability to affect the game, I feel like there's things that you can coach up to be able to finish the job in the end. But I think this is a good pick for them.
Yeah.
At 17.
They need defense, man. Like, man.
Everybody
needs defense. Boy, they need defense. Number 18, I got for the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, they had a very intriguing, offseason. They did add Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold needs weapons on the outside. You traded DK Metcalf, but you did add Cooper Kupp. You got rid of Tyler Lockett. Never really replaced. Oh, you did replace Tyler Lockett. You got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, which, I mean, he's had an up and down career, right? Like, are you? One week he's dropping like five to six passes, and the next he's scoring like 4 to 6 touchdowns a week. So I think that you need some consistency on the outside. You do have Jackson Smith-Njigba, but I like T-Mac here, Cedro McMillan here. You get that big guy who has the DK Metcalf build, 6'4". He ran a 4.4 at his combine, which is ridiculous. He's a strong, big number one wide receiver. He reminds me a lot of T. Higgins, a guy that he's a big body to throw to. And I think that if you want Sam Darnold to not be Sam Darnold from the Jets and be Sam Darnold that we seen last year, get him weapons, and I think that T-Mac would be the perfect weapon for him. He's not Justin Jefferson by any means, because there's not a lot of Justin Jeffersons out there, but he is going to be solid enough to get the ball to, and he could be 1,000-yard receiver in his first year, depending on the team, depending on the situation. And I love Seattle for him in this situation, because he's basically going to a team that's in need of wide receivers, since they've gotten rid of so many other wide receivers this offseason. So,
yeah, I think with this pick, because they have like a Cooper Kupp, they have a Njigba, he doesn't have to come in right away and be the guy. He just has to come in, work hard, contribute, and eventually he can be the guy. Because I still think Cooper Kupp got enough in him to where you get a legit year or two out of him before T-Mac needs to be a number one, if not number two. And so at 19, I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Jahad Campbell out of Bama. It's more of I guess you call him off-ball linebacker.
Yeah.
But has the ability in blitz packages to be able to rush the passer at a high level to where you can even see him come off the edge. And I just feel like with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, what I feel like I don't know, they're a weird team because I do feel like Baker is not going to be good enough to get them to a Super Bowl, but he's good enough to always get them in the playoffs and in the first round exit. And so I do think to be able to bolster up the defense, be able to create pressure on the other team while also he's a sideline to sideline guy, plays very well, very good linebacker. I got Jahad Campbell.
And to mention too, a lot of the linebackers they lost because of age, so it's no longer, it's no longer the same show of the Bucs. So I like that pick because of, replacing a lot of their aging linebackers that they've had in the past. Number 20, I got the Denver Broncos. Sean Payton, took the league by storm last year. It was surprising a lot of us, that I don't think anybody had the Denver Broncos going to the playoffs last year. And I think that they arrived before they arrived. Now it's building on what you did last year. Like they got the tight end and Evan Ingram. They're trying to add a number 2 receiver to go with Cortland Sutton. But the one thing that they lost Williams to the Cowboys, the running back. And I think right here, they're going to get a running back in Omarion Hampton. And Omarion Hampton is a lot like a guy that Sean Payton had before in New Orleans in Alvin Kamara. He has a lot of Alvin Kamara-like traits. And I think, to me, like, he would be, if he goes to Denver, what would scare me, he has the potential to win Rookie of the Year based off of everything that he can do and based on all the ways that Sean Payton would use him in the offense, because that was the one thing that was missing in Denver's offense was that go-to running back and that bell cow back that Sean Payton loves to use and loves to incorporate. We've seen it, all through his career in New Orleans. You got Alvin Kamara, you got he had Pierre Thomas, he had Reggie Bush. Like he has a timeline of running backs that he likes to use. He didn't have that in Denver thus far, but you're going to get that with this pick with Omarion Hampton. And if he goes there, that's my prediction of Rookie of the Year.
Oh, you think so?
Yes. Ooh. If he goes to Denver.
Yeah, I can see that happening though. I think he'll be able to get because didn't he come to UNC after Williams left?
Yeah.
And so I feel like he'll be able to reach the potential that the hype that Williams had coming out of college, because he was supposed to be a starter for a couple of years, and then
he wrecked his knee. Williams wrecked his knee.
Just was never able to get back right. Just can't get right. And so at 21, I got the Steelers. This is a pick that many people would have them going after a quarterback. I just don't. It's a little rich for my blood at 21, given the fact that Shador is not there, the fact that Cam Ward is not available at this pick. So I have them taking the combine freak himself. My man had all the measurables. Big, strong, fast safety out of South Carolina, Nick Imanwori. Ran a fast 40, high jump, physical, coming downhill safety, and I feel like he bolsters up a defense that is getting a little up there in age, so it gives them some fresh bodies in the middle of that defense.
Okay, so number 22, I got the Chargers, and again, in my mind, I feel like this is where Colston Loveland will go. But because I had the Colts picking them early, I don't understand what the hell the Chargers are doing this offseason. I don't get it. You have a franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert, but you're not trying to build around him in any way possible, right? It reminds me a lot of the early part of the Ravens when they had Lamar Jackson in his early days. Like, you're just going to just have one wide receiver, a tight end, and a running back, and you're just going to run a 9 route, and that's it. Or you're going to just throw to seems. So I don't understand. I don't understand it. And I think it would make all the sense in the world if you drafted Mecca Ibuka here, because we seen good Justin Herbert, and then in the playoffs we seen really bad Justin Herbert. And I think that we've seen really bad Justin Herbert because he doesn't have weapons. He just doesn't have the weapons there.
Yes.
And I think the Chargers were a team that overachieved. They did, but you can't continue to play like that. You got to get him some guys that can get open. You got to get him some guys that can catch the ball. And I think Emeka Ibuka would be the perfect fit for them. Or Colston Loveland here would be the perfect fit for them. But at some point, you got to get some weapons for Justin Herbert, like you just do.
Yeah.
You know, like you hit big last year on the Georgia receiver. And you know, so if that's your formula of wanting to draft a wide receiver, Ladd McConkey, but you hit big on Ladd McConkey. But if that's your formula of wanting to get your young quarterback some weapons, then by all means. But you got to get some weapons because y'all didn't only running. I think only weapon y'all got was Najee Harris and a bunch of offensive linemen. So you want to run the ball, cool, but you got to also have to pass the ball as well, you know, and get that ball down the field. So Emeka Ibuka does that for you guys.
Yeah, I hate to see it because I hate the Chargers and I'm an Ohio State fan, but I do think that if this is what is available, you got to get him some weapons.
Yeah.
Either a tight end, but I feel like you can get a good one later in the round. So you just take best available at the moment.
Yeah.
Emeka Ibuka is definitely best available at this point. And so when I'm really sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, man, the Packers, this is a pick I could see them drafting. What's my boy? I got him going later. Gray Zabel. I could see him going him at this pick, but I am gonna go defense. So I got, and I always butcher these names. I'll be practicing, y'all. I swear. But edge rusher, Donovan Ezerake.
I don't know how to say his name.
Edge rusher out of Boston College.
Yeah, bro.
I'm either mixing it. I do believe he was second in sacks behind Mike Green in the whole nation. Gives them some added pressure on that defense, having to get rid of some people over the offseason on the defensive side, putting him on the other side. What was our boy, the Iowa kid, Van Ness, or
Lucas Van Ness,
and then getting some young edge rushers to help out on that defense.
Perfect. So number 24, I got the Vikings, and I look at a Vikings team whose secondary, they had a strong secondary last year, but they're a little bit older. Hunter Smith is getting up. Is his name Hunter Smith, right? Am I saying his last name? Or Harrison Smith? Harrison Smith. Okay, so yeah, Harrison Smith is 35, you know, so he's not getting any younger. They lost Cam Bynum. And I think they lost another cornerback too. I'm blanking on the name. But I think that you want to revitalize your secondary a little bit. And a guy by the name of Malachi Starks from Georgia is who I'm drafting for them. And I think, you know, he's one of the better safeties, and he's going to just help their back end, right? And, you know, he's going to add some youth to that secondary, which they need. And I think that he'll slide in and replace Cameron Bynum. And when Harrison Smith retires, you got his replacement, you know, and a guy, and Malachi Starks from Georgia, that he has winning pedigree, you know. He's a winner from Georgia. You know what happens when you draft from Georgia boys, you know. You're already going to, he's a box safety. He's a guy that you can play inside the box. And he fits what they do on defense very, very well. A team that can mix blitzes up, that could drop in coverage. And I think that Malachi Starks fits that secondary perfectly. So I like this pick for them.
Yeah, me too, man. I think that this is, I've seen a couple different when I was doing my research and seeing who had people going where. It's kind of flip-flopped on my Steelers pick, Imawari, and Malachi Starks being, they could go to either spot or who has what number one safety versus number two safety. So I can definitely see it going either way. At 25, I got the Houston Texans getting some much needed offensive line help. I got them taking, and I brought him up earlier as far as how good of a talent he is, but he is coming off of an injury. I got Josh Simmons, tackle out of Ohio State, um, going down to Houston and getting my boy some help because, man, was he on the run against the Chiefs. And the thing about it is, like, I give him credit for sticking in it, sticking to it, and still being in the game. But to get sacked that many times, always be pressured. I think he led the league in sacks too. But getting him some much needed help, you ship out Laramie Tunzel, get some offensive line veterans in, and you bring in a good young left tackle that, if he can stay healthy, can be a left tackle for the next 10 years.
All right. I like they got to get that. For me, another guy I love for the Texans is Gray Zabel. He's a dude that plays all over the offensive line. He's a guard, he's a tackle, he's a center, he's everything. I would love that for the Houston Texans. That's who my dream, because I'm a huge CJ Stroud fan, and just the downfall of him last year was crazy because of the offensive line. So I want somebody that's a Swiss Army knife for him. Number 26, I got the Rams. I think that the Rams are, you only have 3 years of Matthew Stafford left. He's 37. You've been getting him weapons. You just got him Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua are going to feed families. That's a great tandem. I think that you have to add one more in the middle. You got to get them a good tight end. They already have a pretty solid tight end in Higbee, but Higbee was coming off of a knee injury. He's in his 30s. He's a little bit slower. And so right here is Mason Taylor. Mason Taylor is LSU's all-time leading wide receiver at tight end. He's a guy that can stretch the field vertically. He's a guy that's a red zone threat. He's a big body. He's a guy that Matthew Stafford would love throwing the ball to. He's a guy also too that I think that Sean McVay would have a lot of fun scripting an offense around him and get him involved in the red zone, like I said, because of his big body and his big frame. That was the one thing that I think that was missing in the Rams offense last year, with the injury of Higbee. And you don't have to rely on Higbee as much because then you could go to tight end set. But I like this pick for the Rams.
All right. And then I'm happy I get to kind of are like, as much as I like Lamar, I'm a big fan of the Ravens, so I am always interested to see who they draft and what do they do. Really sitting here thinking this is another, we keep bringing them up, but they could go Gray Zabel here at this pick as well. But I do have them going edge rusher, James Pierce out of Tennessee. I forgot to put what school he went to. But I do got James Pierce out of Tennessee, good edge rusher who coming off of a little bit of a down year, but has all of the measurables and production. Just dealt with some struggles last year, but he was producing the year before last. And so I do think that he's able to bolster up that pass rush, which came on strong toward the end, but started off rough last year. I think gives them another body to be able to create pressures against opposing quarterbacks.
All right. So number 28, I got the Detroit Lions. This is a team that, they don't really need too much, right? They have everything pretty much. They're a well-built team, but with a team who likes to run the ball, who likes to be physical, I'm thinking, what is the one thing that they're lacking? And looking at their roster, they just lost Kevin Zeitler, their right guard from last year. So this is where Gray Zabel will go. And what I like about Gray Zabel is he's a Swiss Army knife at the offensive line. He plays every position, literally. He's a guard. He's a left guard. He's a right guard. He's a left tackle. He's a right tackle. Whatever you need from Gray Zabel, his flexibility is enough. And I think with a guy like Dan Campbell, he loves football players, and he loves toughness. And I think that I think he's just a foundational Detroit Lion player. He's what Dan Campbell builds around. Dan Campbell loves guys like him. So a guy that's just he doesn't play one position. He's available, and it reminds me too of the guy that they had last year, that they have always had, but a Dan Skipper who they use as a blocking tight end. We've seen them throw screens to their tight ends. We've seen them use or obviously their tackles or put their tackles in reverse situations, screen passes to them. I think that Gray Zabel could do a lot of that too if you wanted him to do that, right? So he's a football player, and so I got them drafting a football player, Gray Zabel.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about when it comes to this next pick. This next pick may not make sense because if you look at the depth chart, there's Terry McLaurin, Debo Samuels, Noah Brown, Michael Gallup, Luke McCaffrey, and KJ Osborne.
Yeah.
So this pick may not make sense, but hey, in the end, fuck it, we ball. So I got the Washington Commanders selecting Jaden Higgins, wide receiver out of Iowa State. Produced, I think he had 140 receptions over the last 2 years. Big body receiver, something that I feel like McLaurin's not a small wide receiver, but he's just not the big body 6'4", T-Max size type wide receiver. May not have the same skill set, but and the ceiling, but I think that he's a good big body wide receiver, something that Jaden Daniels can use with the Commanders. If they go wide receiver, I can definitely see them going defense. Best defensive player available. I can see them going corner. Trey Amos could be at this spot. I'm not sure. Did they lose both D tackles, or are they still there? Because I could see them going Derek Harmon too, but
I personally have them going corner, like you said. But let me answer your question real quick.
I know Jonathan Allen's still there, but I don't remember if they lost.
I don't think Jonathan Allen is there. No,
Aaron.
Jonathan Allen's not there. They have Deron Payne and they picked up Kinlaw.
That's what it was. I bet.
Yeah. Okay, so this next pick I got going to Buffalo, and it's gonna piss me off because they lost their cornerback, and I just cannot think of their cornerback's name, and I definitely know his name. But you have Christian Benford there. You have they just re-signed Tre'Davious White. And Tre'Davious White, we know, has an extensive injury history. So you're a team that cannot beat the Kansas City Chiefs to save your life, in the postseason. And a lot of it has to do with you guarding your wide receiver. A lot of it has to do with speed on the perimeter. The cornerback that you got from the Packers, I just cannot think of his name. There's a reason why you traded for him. Is because of you're struggling against the Chiefs and being able to shut down the outside. And he left you. He's leaving you. He left you in free agency, and you didn't re-sign him. So with this pick, you're gonna get Trey Amos from Ole Miss. Trey Amos is a measurables guy. He's 6'1". He's a really strong press corner. Gives you 4.4 speed. He's a guy that's gonna help you with your kryptonite. Beating the Chiefs. A guy that's going to be tough against the Ravens, because these are the teams that you're going to be facing on the cold months. You need a guy that's a good press corner. And I believe that Trey Amos could be one of the best press corners in this draft. And I think it's a perfect fit for them. So Trey Amos.
As I adjust this.
Rasul Douglas. There you go. Oh my God. Rasul Douglas. That's who they lost. That's who I was thinking. Okay, there you go.
Hey, shout out to Josh Allen though, because his chick's so bad. Did you see Centers? Bro, Jordy is bad. I ain't gonna hold you. No disrespect though. I mean that respectfully, of course. And then hate these motherfuckers. But Kansas City Chiefs, I got them at 31, taking Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon, bolstering up that line, getting to learn from a Chris Jones and the rest of them boys. Spags defense gets another one.
You know what? They should throw that whole pick away. They need offensive line. Picking it. They need to draft nothing but offensive line. Nothing but offensive line. Their offensive line is horrible. I don't understand why they traded their best offensive lineman. I will never. I would say Josh Connerly there because they need an offensive line. They should pick one should be an offensive lineman, pick two should be an offensive lineman, pick three should all the way down. You need an offensive lineman. You need an offensive line. But real shit, I love Derek Harmon. Derek Harmon's a great player, but I'm just picking at the Chiefs because I can't stand them. With number 32, the defending champions, the Eagles. I got him here drafting Walter Nolan, defensive tackle from Ole Miss. And it's just because they lost a lot of defensive linemen in free agency. So you kind of want to replenish it. You lost Josh Sweat. They lost Milton Williams to the Cardinals. No, was it? He didn't go to Cardinals. He went to the Panthers. He went somewhere. He signed a deal. Yeah, Milton Williams, the defensive tackle. I think it's not with the Panthers. Panthers. It was the Panthers. But yeah, so you lost your defense. You lost some defensive linemen. So, I mean, we see what they did to the Chiefs. That's why I'm saying they need to go offensive line. But, but the Eagles wreck shop with the defensive line. So it's basically, you lose one guy, you start bringing them in. That's what Howie Roseman does. So Walter Nolan here would be the perfect fit for them to replace Milton Williams, right? And he's a guy that gives you some scheme flexibility. You can play defense tackle, play defense end. So you basically, get a 2-for-1 special here. But yeah, I love Walter Nolan for them just to replenish that defensive line, just for depth, for more depth purposes. And the rich get richer.
Yeah, man. It sucks because I'm like, man, being a Raider fan is hard, bro. And it's like you see these teams just rich getting richer. It feels like the poor getting poor. But before we get up out of here, of all the quarterbacks, who do you think will end up in the best position with the team that they go to?
Whoever the Rams draft, because here's what I want the Rams to do, or here's what I think the Rams should do, right? I like Quinn Ewers to the Rams because I think that you're Matthew Stafford's on his way out. We know this. He's 37. But you're going to get a guy in Sean McVay that's going to rebuild you. And I've seen him rebuild Baker Mayfield. I've seen him try to help rebuild, Carson Wentz. So he's done a good job of taking reclamation projects and doing something with them. I think at some point in this draft, I do have the Rams drafting a quarterback. And I think whoever goes to the Rams are going to be in the best spot just because of who they have, as a guy to just sit and learn behind. And I've seen what he's done with careers. For shits and giggles, I had him getting Quinn Ewers later on in the draft because I just think that he fits a certain, he just fits a certain thing that they do. And I think that I feel like he's someone that McVay looks at and be like, I can fix that, or I could build that, so I like that situation for them. For sure. So whoever goes to the Rams, I'm gonna love that for whatever quarterback goes there.
I felt that. I'm curious to see who they end up getting.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned at the beginning, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Thanks for commenting. Shout out to the homie Hug. But make sure you go subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe at Juk Network. Subscribe. Follow Juk Network as well on Facebook. As well, follow me at KyngrAlph on TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, add an _ for extra Twitter, and we out of here. Peace.